okay. So is there anybody, there are people who don't know what it is, are there? So it's a strange rock formation in the northeast of the country. It appears on the cover of Led Zeppelin's Houses of the Holy album. The first dodgy Led Zeppelin album. But it's made of basalt, these columns of basalt, hexagonals, six-sided columns of basalt. So they stick off out into the sea and then just sort of just disappear off into nowhere. Now you'd probably ask a geologist about basalt, right? What is that? How did it get there? And they go, well, all began when the earth was a molten ball, and then what happened was it cooled and blah 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 blah. We know that it was built by a man named Fionn McCool, great warrior of ancient Ireland. Now he was a man, but people referred to him as a giant because he was a huge, big, strapped beast, big warrior of a man. It said that he had a really youthful look, this almost baby's face, and he had a loyal band of warriors called the Fianna, who had this beautiful motto, which was purity of our hearts, strength of our limbs, actions to match our speech. And they never lost a battle. So Ireland obviously is a small island. You may well wonder what lies across foreign oceans and stuff like that, especially if you are from the northeast of the country, from Antrim where he is, where if you get a clear day you can see 12 miles across the ocean to the nearest country, which in Irish we call Alba or Albin, but they don't call it that. They call it England. No, better than England. Scotland. Now they've had just as many crimes against their accent in movies as well. At least Shrek is funny, but it's not really what they sound like. Mel Gibson being the worst of all. Braveheart, a movie about Scottish history made in Ireland by an Australian director. The Irish Defence Forces were pretty much all the extras in that movie. It was made in a lot of it was made in Meath, and a lot of people, the Irish, they just call it local defence force now, but it used to be in Irish. It used to be Forsa Custom de Áitiúil, which means local defence force, but in Irish. And a lot of people used to join because all you had to do was do a bit of marching, and then you got to keep jumpers and stuff like that that would have been really expensive otherwise. So people used to actually call it the Free Clothes Association. That was what they used to refer to it as. But all those guys are the extras. It's all stories that the such and such, my cousin was the fourth arse from the left in the big famous wine shop. But he doesn't know about Braveheart, obviously. He doesn't know about Mel Gibson. He doesn't know about the accent, but he knows he wants to visit this mysterious place. So he builds himself a causeway. And he arrives first at the Isle of Staffa, not on the mainland itself. And in the distance, he spies this big castle. Biggest castle he'd ever seen in his life before. But he's in foreign land, he doesn't know if it's safe. So he uses all of his stealth and skill as a warrior. Sneaks along, hides behind stuff, back to the steps again, and he scales the castle wall and he finds a little ledge that he can balance on. There's a little crack in the wall, and what he sees terrifies him. It was very coarse, so much so that he nearly loses his footing and tumbles right the way back down again. He sees the huge Scottish giant Benandonner, far taller than he, 20 feet, soaring into the air, and what Benandonner is doing is picking up boulders one-handed and crushing them into pebbles. And as this big army of servants are collecting them, they're bringing them off, they're helping to build a road to the north of the island. Fionn McCool does the only sensible thing you would do in these circumstances. He gets the hell out of there as quick as he possibly could. But before he goes home, he calls upon his loyal Fianna and he stations some of them as lookouts, just in case Benandonner should find out. Unfortunately, Benandonner does find out about Fionn's little visit to his island, about his causeway. He decides he is going to find Fionn McCool and he is going to tear him limb from limb. How dare he enter his land unbidden? So he runs towards the causeway. The Fianna spot him, they rush, they warn Fionn. Fionn gets into a terrible panic and he went to his wife Una, as he had done many times before, because behind every great man in history there is a great woman. She never was a juror in this case because she was the brains of the operation. There's a very funny Irish writer called Flann O'Brien. Have people heard of him? Yeah, because do you know why? Because he stayed here. He didn't leave and go to Paris, Joyce or any of the other. All the famous ones are the ones that left. He wrote a book where he makes fun of Irish fairy tales and stuff in it, as well as many other things. There's about 4 different characters inside of each other's stories and stuff. It's a crazy, crazy book. Very funny. But he describes Fionn McCool as being He says Fionn McCool was a great warrior of ancient Ireland. Though physically strong, he was not mentally robust. So that's a pretty polite way of calling someone thick. He was the brains, she was very much the brains. Anytime they needed a little scheme, something clever, she was the one that came up with it. The footsteps are approaching, the house begins to shake. She suddenly has this great idea, but she doesn't have time to explain it, so she says, okay, look, just get into a basket beside the fire and I'll do everything else. And she starts to sing him a lullaby. Now, with so many good singers, I don't know if anybody feels like chiming in with a lullaby at this point, no?
Sure.
Oh, cool, okay. Got one. Any? So fiercely that the whole house shakes. And Una, very calm, very composed, gets up and answers the door. And I'm going to do a lady's voice now, so. She says, "Who are you to come here at this hour of the night and disturb my wee baby when he's sleeping?" "I'm Billy Donald, I'm a giant and I'm from Scotland. I've come here for to kill the one they call Fionn McCool for daring to enter my land. Is he home?" "Well, you're welcome to kill him if you can find him. He went out for milk 2 days ago and haven't seen him. Come in and have a cup of tea if you like, but it'll have to be black, because there's no milk. But take off your shoes." Bloody Jesus, please pick up on bloody shoes. That's me, Fionn Hill. That's me, Fionn Hill. That's me, Fionn Hill either. Checked everywhere, except by the basket. Una's still there, very calm and composed. So he reaches out his hand to check. Slaps it off him and says, "Do not go near my baby when he's sleeping." That is the end of the conversation. He says, "That is your baby." His own children are not even half the size of this thing in the basket. If Fionn McCool can have children that size, he does not want to mess with Fionn McCool. So without another word, he just runs out of the cottage, runs across the causeway, destroys it behind him to break the bridge so Fionn can never get back over to the Isle of Staffa. And the two grow old together, remember the good old times. One of their favourite stories to relive, to remember, to recount, was the tale of the time when the fully grown giant was sent running in terror by a not so little baby in a basket. I can prove that that story is true, though. I can prove that it is, as we say in Ireland, or Dublin specifically, fact. That's, people say fact after stuff that they say just to emphasise it. You don't have to do the clap, but it's more fun. Visit the Isle of Staffa. What will you see? What, something that looks exactly like the Giant's Causeway, pointing in the right direction. Everything else, that proves that that story is fact. So, we're going to be getting off the bus